does have impact when things that might be obvious to some of us are said at that level. Now, I was going to, if this works, if any of you want a resource for seeing what rights different countries around the world have, then I do suggest you look at the ILGA website, which is the International Day Against Homophobia. And I'm going to show you this brilliant new thing that they've got up. I think it's tremendous. So some of you may be familiar with their maps that they print, and it says, you know, things like who has same-sex marriage, where is it time to discriminate against homosexuals, etc. Well, what they've done now is make it more interactive. So you can go and select at the top details about female-to-female relationships, ability to change gender on official documents, we've got HIV, we've got punishments, a bit of punishment. So punishments for male-to-male relations, and here you'll see, you know, what is it now? Is it 9 countries have the death penalty? Many countries don't and have never really had any laws relating to any of it, but there's still massive problems, and other countries have imprisonment of 10 years or more. And a good example, Kenya. In Kenya, they've had quite a bit of a clampdown recently. So a lot of people say, oh, they've got these laws, but they don't really bang anyone up. Yes, they do. And in Kenya, it's quite common for gay men who have sex with other men to be locked up for at least 10 to 14 years. And 89% of Kenyan gay men who come out or are outed are disowned by their family. And despite us knowing that surely 10% of the community in Kenya must be LGBT, 96% of the public are apparently against any rights for same-sex couples or bringing in any kind of protection for LGBT people. Julius Kalu, Bishop of the Anglican Church of Kenya in Mombasa, he reported to have said in July last year that the movement to allow same-sex marriage is a bigger threat to the Christian church than terrorism. And I don't know if anyone's read the recent book, Fanny and Stella. Looking at you just for knowledge about this. Oh, it's a great idea. Fanny and Stella, anyway. And interestingly, it documents a Victorian trial in this country about 2 cross-dressing females. And I remember his talk, Neil McKenna, for History Month in Camden, where he was reading a lot of the digests of the courts at the time, and it had the Attorney General involved, it had the Solicitor General involved, it had the Prime Minister involved. And I remember immediately thinking, there's only one thing I can think of that would get that attention in Britain today, and that is terrorism. So it's something that people really do equate terrorism. LGBT rights might not be as much in this country, but that's clearly the mindset in many other places. But there are positives in Kenya. Many organisations now exist, the Transgender Education and Advocacy Group, the Gay and Lesbian Coalition of Kenya, to bring people together to campaign for LGBT rights. Recently, the US Embassy had an LGBT pride last June, and a lot of locals coming under protection of the embassy. And very, very pleased to see that outside of South Africa, the early openly gay politician, forgive me if I pronounce this wrong, David Kuria, did run for office for Parliament, although he did quit due to, he got a lot of harassment, but the main problem was that he didn't have enough funds from his campaign groups to fund the protection that he needed because of the number of death threats he was getting. It wasn't so much he couldn't take the death threats, he couldn't afford any more. He'd already spent all of his election money on bodyguards, etc. IDAHO now takes trans rights as seriously, and many of you may have come to our Trans Day of Remembrance, where we commemorate those that have lost their lives around the world through suicide or murder. Last year, over 265 official trans deaths, although the figure has been much higher. And already this year, we've had 87 trans murders around the world already. You can always predict it, it's always heartbreaking. And this year we've noticed much higher mutilation and torture of trans populations. And most of these, as usual, coming from South America, and we don't really know the figures. Now today, for IDAHO 2013, the Trans Murder Monitoring Project has been formally initiated. It came about a couple of years ago. It's all been formalised today, and this is part of Transgender Europe. The idea is that they're going to attempt to map murders more efficiently around the country, so that we've got their names, so that we know the true numbers, and we can start launching more campaigns. The world is making progress, despite anti-gay propaganda laws in St. Petersburg, and the fact that they've banned their prides in a lot of Russian jurisdictions. A local St. Petersburg IDAHO committee have been allowed for the first time to congregate and have IDAHO celebrations. And some other progress is we've had the 13th country to legalise same-sex marriage. Uruguay, Denmark, and New Zealand being the latest. We'll talk about France later. A lot of things are now happening around the world from IDAHO. I'm just going to show you this short 2-minute YouTube clip from South Africa because I really liked just the artistic way they've done it. Testing it with English there. It's not hard. I did try to save these things. It's nice too. Very short, I just like it. Other successes, very briefly, I was very clear. This year, some of you might have noticed in History Month, we did some work with Arsenal Football Club, and what we got is for them to use their very lucrative advertising signs going around. The match never kicked out the FA Cup, unfortunately. And they put a big rainbow flag jetting around saying Arsenal Football Club supports LGBT History Month 2013, which was great. But I was really pleased to see that in America, can you remember the name of the football soccer club?
Portland Timbers.
Portland?
Portland. P-O-R-T-L-A-N-D.
Just briefly, they did this. So this is a very the equivalent of sort of Premier League club in America. They did this today. hate crime is still a massive issue in this country. I think a couple of years ago a report said that in London the voluntary sector of LGBT groups received less than 0.01% of any charitable funds, despite being 10% of the population at least, with a lot of baggage from formal laws and discriminations. But charities are now being cut even more. So those charities that really didn't have anything are now being closed down, and that's not a good thing. So do tell your local councils up and down the country about that. Gay marriage, I've noticed, has brought some people out of the closet, the debates we've been having, but it has put some people straight back in as a result of some of the discussions that have been had, particularly some of the stuff that's come over from America, from some of their radio hosts and evangelical leaders. Probably sexuality is still the only thing where it's generally acceptable to publicly state that we think people should go to hell or be killed. It's still kind of acceptable, and this has sent some people back into the closet. Well, I hope that we can all come together to actually bring this gay marriage bill through, because only then will people start to come out again. We've got the issue in the UK of primary school education, and we got rid of section 28. In Camden, we speak to every secondary school each year, and we do that through several workshops with assemblies and smaller groups. But up and down the country and in most London boroughs, there is no LGBT work in schools unless there's a maverick honourable member of staff who tries to push something. But we're making progress in Camden. In a couple of weeks, I'm going to be talking to pretty much every primary school in Camden through 230 workshops, which I'm not looking forward to, doing 230 of them. Although it's an amazing cause, 10 minutes each to talk to primary school kids, because that doesn't happen, but it's going to happen in Camden. Everyone at the age of 10 will now have at least 10 minutes with me or someone talking about LGBT bullying and discrimination. So if anyone in the audience here would like to help me do that, then come and chat with me afterwards. 225, as much as I love it, it's be nice to have a little. Hello, Steve. So excellent. Now, very briefly, what if you're a victim in Camden? So I'm from Camden, Lesbian, Gay, Bisexual and Transgender Forum, and we've got a good system in Camden. First of all, we've got a DVD we take to secondary schools, and anyone can take one of these at the end if you want to promote it to your school or your school. Although we go in most of them with this anyway, it's good for all teachers to have it. If anyone is a victim and they don't want to go through official channels or to the police, they can always pick up one of our third-party reporting forms and report anonymously to us, and we can either take people to the police or sort the problem out without any need to involve the authorities. Linking into the French issue, we've got one of a very unique concept in Camden called CLASP, the Camden LGBT Advice and Safety Project. And this is, you see, 100 organisations around Camden with one of these stickers. Do you have that here? And the idea is that it shows two things. One, it's a safe space for LGBT people, and they're understood and welcome, but it's also modelled on the gang-related safe havens over in Lewisham, and if anyone in Camden is being bothered or harassed on the street, they can seek sanctuary with these organisations. And last week, Canal, the French network, came down to do a documentary. You'll see me and some of our class volunteers in it, probably then dubbing it in French. That would be interesting. And the idea is they want to try and get Paris to create something similar. So hopefully Camden initiatives are going all around the world. So you can take one of our booklets at the end that have details. Now, sorry for the long introduction, but today is mainly about France. And we've done IDAHO for several years, and we've had poetry nights, which was one of the precursors actually to our Insight, which is our poetry night. Thank you, Patrick, for good review in QX magazine. Anyone's welcome to take one of these and come to our poetry nights at the Phoenix Artists Club. We've done that. A couple of years ago, I chaired one on globalisation of homophobia. So we had Claire Dimian, Black Davis Makiala, Dan Toya. Last year we did it at UCL on education, Tony Fenwick, Martin Cormack. And this year is on France, because we often tackle South American issues, African issues, and we thought it would be good just to go closer to see what was happening over the channel, because a lot has been happening with the introduction of gay marriage legislation, both positive and negative, and a lot of it's had an impact over here in Britain. But I'm not going to talk about that, because our panelists will. So, who do we have on the panel today? Got there in the end. We have Thibault, who's from the UCL Department of French, and Ray. And just very briefly, I did Google. I always try and do this. And I've got your interests here, Thibault. You've had a lot of very diverse number of interests. Political theory, gender and sexuality, critical discourse analysis, French studies, citizenship and governance, gender and race, political discourse, French politics, and immigration systems. So you've got a bright future at UCL, which they like not to tell. Patrick Cash is a freelance journalist, creative writer, and you're an arts culture reviewer. At the highest standard, hence the 4 out of 5 star review we had in Curator. And he has written for print and online publications, and you're the, what's the official assistant editor, but it's not the assistant editor. It's editorial assistant, means something different. Of QX magazine, and you've written for the Gay Times as well, haven't you? Pink Paper, Venue, Bonjour, Paris, I presume that's how you pronounce it, and the Culture Trade. We also have Lisa Quinn. Now Lisa is a recent addition to our membership of the Camden Queer Oratory Laboratory, or QLab for short, and that's a Camden LGBT Forum initiative which gets people, LGBT communities, into public speaking. We put people on training courses, people can share ideas and go on a circuit and start getting feedback about their communication skills. We've launched a radio project at Roundhouse. The Youth Club is going to offer free radio training for other people who want to learn, perhaps how to be a radio DJ or presenter. And the idea is that we then have this bank of speakers. It's great for people like Lisa, but then it's also good for people who are businesses or organisations who can then come to us and say, we've got a conference but we've never really had any LGBT perspectives. Do you have a speaker who might come and talk about basic health needs that are for LGBT people, and then it can inform our debate. And Lisa is from the Queer Oratory Laboratory, and Lisa's going to talk for a few minutes on some of her personal stories relating to some of the trans work that's been happening in the UK. And we're going to briefly touch on what you've seen in the media fronts as well. So I will conclude at the end and we'll have a short Q&A. But before then, I think we'll introduce our first speaker, who is Patrick. Round of applause for Patrick.
Am I covered with a silver sheen here? Should I stand where Nigel was? Is that better? Is it okay? Yeah? Yeah? Okay, cool. Thank you to the Camden LGBT Forum for inviting me to be here today on IDAHO, International Day Against Homophobia. It was an apt occasion to wear my rainbow tie, of which there are not many occasions. And today I'm going to talk about the situation in France and link it in a little bit into the situation in the UK as well. And the title of my talk is From Manif to UKIP, the March for the Moderate Middle. So, here goes. Manif 2 are not directly targeting homosexuals, for instead they are targeting a much broader and potentially far more powerful social group to sway to their side, the moderate middle. By moderate middle, I refer to those members of the populace who are neither strictly left nor right-wing affiliated, those who are not anti-equal rights, but are not necessarily supporters of equal rights either. In political campaigns, this group is often referred to by the term swing voters and can form the active focus of a candidate's election plan, for swing voters bring strength by virtue of their sheer numbers. Manif 2 translates into English as March for All, and they have claimed from their start to be representing the silent majority of France. Conveniently, a silent majority does not have a voice of its own to deny Manif Batu this representation. The organisation specifically does not align itself with known right-wing groups, such as Marine Le Pen's much maligned National Front Party, where a councillor named Richard Jacob hit the headlines in February of this year for shouting homophobic abuse and attacking gay rights activists. By distancing themselves from these actions, dubious comedienne Brigitte Bardot and her cohorts can lay claim to a much more populist and moderate appeal. So how do Manif Batu go about targeting the moderate middle? Firstly, they ubiquitously proclaim themselves to be neither homophobic nor in any way anti-homosexual. It may seem like a disarmingly obvious point, but if a political organisation such as Manif Batu declare in all their publicly available literature that they have a certain sentiment, then average members of the public, those who make up the moderate middle, can feel safer in supporting them, even if the truth of their actual policies are glaringly different to this public sentiment. Manif Batu have stated they are not homophobic, and therefore they cannot be oppressors. Anybody from the general public of France can freely join in with their cause and not feel as if they are colluding with bigotry. And their policies, as painted by Manif Batu upon their website, quite clearly display themselves as protectors. Protectors of the institution of marriage, protectors of the word marriage, protectors of the French Civil Code, protectors of as yet unborn children's rights. In particularly effusive moments, they are also the protectors of, I quote, humanity, humankind, human identity, and anthropological order. My point is that to the typical and presumably heterosexual member of the moderate middle, these policies are designed to appear non-toxic and appeal to everyone. Manif Batu, after all, is the March for All. The trouble is that they are not the March for All, but the March for All except some. And this some, in the very wording of their policies, becomes the active opposition of the all. If there is a need for protectors of marriage, the civil code and children, then it stands to reason that by Manif Batu's logic, there must be aggressors against these things. If Manif Batu are the self-proclaimed protectors of humanity itself, then there must be some who are a threat to that humanity. This some becomes the LGBT population in France. One of Manif Batu's purportedly valorous claims is that by protecting marriage, they create greater social cohesion. Yet, as they gain greater numbers to their cause, they are spreading social dissent, pitting a swayable moderate middle against a minority group that already faces considerable challenges. At their 300,000-strong rally in Paris on March 24th, the slogans have progressed to take on a new angle: the economy. On veut du boulot, pas de mariage homo, red placards, meaning we want jobs, not gay marriage. By effecting this stance, Manif Batu achieve a double whammy. They lessen the status of Francois Hollande's pro-gay marriage government in the eyes of their supporters. Why are you, Francois, wasting time on the gay marriage issue when you should be improving your economy? And they deepen the division they have already instigated between their supporters and the LGBT community. Why are you, homosexuals, getting undue attention from the government when I am, according to Manif Batu, getting nothing but a havoc-wrecked civil code? Using the economy as a weapon is clever, for it automatically widens Manif Batu's net appeal and message from just the moderate middle to all those who are seriously affected by bad economy and lack of jobs. This includes France's notoriously volatile and disaffected youth. I am not stating that all the homophobic attacks recently in France occurred from this group, nor am I saying that violence of this kind was explicitly Manif Batu's intention. But statistically speaking, abuse of any minority group, and specifically violent abuse, is more likely to be rooted in the disgruntlement of society than the advantage. And it is true that the spate of attacks upon gay people in France have risen sharply since Manif Batu began focusing on the economy, with their message conveyed to all via their significant presence in the national media. Gay rights watchdog SOS Homophobia recorded a 27% spike in phone calls to report 1,977 homophobic attacks in France in the run-up to the equal marriage debate. Wilfried de Bruges, was severely beaten for walking home arm in arm with his lover through Paris on the 6th of April. On the same night, a group calling themselves the Printemps Français, or French Spring, defaced the LGBT centre in the capital. Filming the video was on YouTube. Within a week of each other, later in April, a gay cabaret dancer was beaten unconscious in Nice, and 4 young men attacked a gay bar in Lille, punching the manager and targeting customers. When interviewed afterwards, the bar manager stated, "It is fashionable to be against gays right now." Did Manic Platoon organise any of these attacks? I do not believe so. But did their outspoken policies and media presence pave the way for these attacks, for it to be fashionable to be against gays right now? Almost certainly so. Indeed, should these attackers look around them to assuage their consciences, it would seem, according to Manic Platoon, that the moderate middle majority and the mood of their country is with them. And as their policies and propaganda have worked, the words of Manic Platoon have gained a more incendiary and violent flair to their phrasing. When Francois Hollande pushed the same-sex marriage bill through in a surprise move, weeks earlier than expected, an enraged Brigitte Bardot's exact words were, "Hollande wants blood, and he shall get it." Manic Platoon attracted an estimated 300,000 demonstrators to the March 24th parade in Paris. But on the same day, they attempted to organise a similar demonstration in Trafalgar Square in London, where they attracted only an estimated 2,000 supporters. Comfortingly, it was estimated that just as many anti-Manic Platoon and pro-gay marriage protesters turned up to Trafalgar Square also that day. It would seem that the UK right now is in fact more liberal than France, a swing of history from the days when disgraced English noblemen would flee across the Channel to seek the protection of France's Napoleonic code against accusations of perversion back home. That this is not to say that the UK is not without its own political organisation, aiming to sway a moderate middle to its dubious cause, namely the UK Independence Party, commonly known as UKIP. UKIP, of course, is an established political party, whereas Manic Platoon is for the moment a political organisation, but there are still similarities in their respective courses of action. UKIP is traditionally best known for seeking Britain to withdraw from the EU, as evidenced by its full name. But in recent years, a BBC News analysis states the party has sought to broaden its appeal beyond that single issue, and it has developed a full range of policies in all areas. UKIP has adopted both right and left-wing positions in these policies, leading some critics to state it is simply a shopping list of populist positions that have not been properly costed. Indeed, when researching this speech, I found upon a UKIP forum a trusted member named Steve UKIP announced UKIP are a moderate, middle-of-the-road centre party. My intention here is to illustrate